My name is Ajisha Alwin, and I am the social media webmaster, marketing officer, and coordinator of the ESA student section. And welcome to day 3 of the ESA student highlights for the ESA 2020 annual meeting. And today we have Selina Cortez, a SEEDS SPUR fellow, who's super awesome. So I'm going to give her the floor now to let her introduce herself and go ahead, just talk about your interests and who you are.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited and super happy to be here. For all of you guys watching, please feel free to send any live questions on the chat or anything like that. I'd be more than happy to talk about anything that you guys may have in mind. So I'm a recent graduate. I went to Lenora Ryan University in Hickory, North Carolina. It's a small liberal arts school. And I did my SPUR fellowship research at the Yeno River field station in Junction, Texas. And so that research station is located in a place that has one of the highest concentration of deer in Texas. And so all of this huge unmanaged population of different kind of deer species has had a lot of negative effects on the ecosystem in terms of erosion, bacteria, pollution, plant biomass. And so what I did is I focused on how this unmanaged deer herbivory affected the insect community. And so I studied in an area where there was active deer herbivory and in an area where there wasn't. And I sort of looked at the insect community levels and how that varied within diversity, richness, and evenness.
Yeah, that
and
is.
Thank you for liking my earrings, Brandon. I love dangly earrings.
I second that. I love dangly earrings. It's just not convenient to wear in the lab because my hair gets stuck. I have super long hair, so obviously it's not convenient, but I love dangly earrings too. But yeah, that was great. So now I'm gonna have you talk a little bit more about your research, like your presentation, like just do like your story, like how you started it, like you talked a little bit about it now. So I just want you to kind of elaborate on it and what you think the impact is in the field of ecology for your study. And go ahead, and you can go ahead and start.
Thank you. So, the way that I got started on my research on like my entomology work is I've actually never had on my campus like an entomologist to like show me the field. But the way that I got started on bugs was actually on my university's nature preserve. So they have like this totally unmanaged woody area behind my university that is completely taken over by kudzu. And so what I decided to do was I dedicated myself on to finding kudzu bugs way of living, what they eat, when they're active, different kinds of things like that. So what I did is I first started studying kudzu bugs in about the late summer, early fall, to see if I could find their natural dormancy. So if I could figure out their natural dormancy, I could figure out like how can we get rid of kudzu bugs, but at the same time, how can we utilize them to potentially manage kudzu populations. And so that's how I first got interested in insects. And my advisor at the Yeno River Field Station knew about this. He is more of an aquatic biologist. His name is Dr. Thomas Arsufi. And so, talking about this with him, he came to realize that no one had actually done a full insect community diversity study. Last year's past fellow, Julie Marr, actually did her study on the ant populations in that area. Same thing, sort of finding out like how they're active and how they manage in that area. And so what I did was there were exclosures, basically these huge fenced areas in Junction, Texas, where they were being used to keep deer out because they were doing like these further studies on a different range of trophic levels of how these deer affect the area. Because there's actually two different kinds of deer that are really prevalent in there. That opens up a whole new can of worms because their prominent deer was axis deer, which is actually a non-native deer. And it being a non-native, there's really no hardcore concrete studies on them. They had previously been using the data collection method deer on axis deer, on like figuring out how they age and what they eat. And after thoroughly researching axis deer, they find that there was like a 7-year gap of difference on using that method. So the way that they were originally studying these deer was actually inaccurate. And so that opened so many new questions on like what is the true diet of axis deer? What is their true aging method? And so going into these unmanaged populations of deer, they would eat all of the plants, which would then cause erosion, which would then cause accumulation of sediment in the river, making it, it's one of the cleanest rivers in Texas. So they want to maintain that clean watershed ecosystem. And so that was in itself opening up so many problems. And so I just sort of took a little portion of that deer ungulate herbivory problem, and I just looked at how insects were being affected by it. So I did your traditional sweep net method, which is like with that big jellyfish looking net, and I did your typical pitfall trap, which is where you actually dig a hole, you put a cup or some kind of bowl into the ground, and sort of the crawling insects just fall right into it. And so I did those 2 different kinds of methods. I collected in the early morning at 8 different locations, and then I also collected at night. So I wanted to see if nighttime insects had any differentiation, if they played any role in diversity as well. So what I ended up finding was that actually, just because the outside had herbivore activity, that didn't actually mean that it was more diverse, and the inside didn't actually mean that it was more populated. So what I ended up finding was that the diversity actually laid within richness and evenness, so much in population dynamics or anything like that, but more on like what kinds of insects I was finding. And you have to keep in mind that this is like a river, Edwards Plateau area. So that my locations that were closer to the river, of course, was made up by more aquatic insects versus inland insects. So that was another thing that I got to look at. And one of my other outcomes was that the nighttime population that I found, a lot of the time I would capture a lot of arachnids, which wasn't even part of my study. So like even just within that, I was able to find scientific data about arachnids, even though they really didn't have anything to do with my study. So I'm really hoping that can lead into like figuring out how to manage these deer populations, and also what else that could affect. I do want to note though that the exclosures have only been up for about 2 years when I did, so it wasn't completely representative of an area without deer herbivory, just because that really is long enough to tell like long significant results.
Yeah, no, that is an incredible project, and I understand like the non-native species actually, interfering with the natural ecosystem of an area, and that's really cool that you're studying that. And yeah, 2 years is not like enough for like an enclosure to just gain data, because any experiment takes way longer to just have like a nice solid chunk of data to actually present as a study. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing your research, and that was incredible. Next, I want to ask you about how you found seeds and how you became a SPUR fellow. Like, what was your experience?
Okay. So the way I found seeds was actually on accident. So my mentor at my university, Dr. Carly York, was actually looking for funding for her own research. And so she came across the ESA, and I had previously spoken to her about my passion about being more diverse, being more inclusive, and one of my career aspirations is environmental education, making sure that minorities have access to environmental education. And so that sort of just like led her to bringing it up to me, expressing her interest on having a SEEDS chapter on campus. And so like one thing led to another. Next thing I know, we were starting a SEEDS chapter together. And that's sort of how I started finding out about all of these awesome resources, including the travel awards, the leadership meetings. And so it was actually at, I believe it was the 2018 leadership meeting at the Chiricahua Mountains in Arizona, that I met some SPUR fellows, and like, that's amazing. Like, I want to apply for that. Like, they had done amazing work that year, and I decided to go ahead and apply the following year. So it worked out in my favor, because I was planning on graduating like in December, but I was like, that's only if I took summer classes, right? So I was like, I would much rather do the SPUR fellowship during the summer and then just graduate a semester later. Like, I really think that expertise and research and skills that I've gained really made a difference in terms of just taking that extra semester. So as a SPUR fellow, I can say I've had a really good experience, like a wonderful experience. My mentor at the Yana River Field Station was so understanding, like very, very kind. And so were the directors of the field station itself. I was able to really, truly experience that Texan lifestyle. The field station itself is home to tons of different kinds of sciences. And so it's like in a really remote area. Like, it was 2 hours away to the closest Walmart, if that gives you an idea.
Wow.
So it was like,
Yeah.
it really put me into like a different mindset of what it means to be an ecologist and really study all of these natural processes without that human presence really affecting it. So it really made me grateful and humbled me in a lot of ways that I wasn't imagining to be to interact with that kind of thing. So I thoroughly enjoyed my time, and I'm looking forward to meeting everyone else in future meetings. And I can definitely say that the other peers that I've met through SEEDS and through the fellowships are lifelong friendships. We all live all around the world, and I think it's amazing to continue to cheer each other on and to like know that you always have a resource and a friend, no matter where you are in your career stage.
Yeah, I mean, that is incredible. Thank you for sharing your experience. And of course, I'm also a big fan of SEEDS myself. And just because the diverse community that the SEEDS program serves, and it's just, it's just one big happy family. And I'm so happy to be a part of that family. So my experience with SEEDS has also been, it's just only been a year. And it feels like it's been longer than that. But, it's only been a year that I've been part of SEEDS. But yeah, so that's my experience. And yeah, I think it froze for a minute there. I was like, oh my god, are you not moving? Or, um, yeah, I think you just froze for like a second. But you're back now. Alright, so the next thing we wanted to ask is, talk about the SEEDS chapters. Like, how do we start one? So, talk about your experience in starting a SEEDS chapter. Like, what opportunities you got because you started a SEEDS chapter.
Of course. So one of the things I do want to ask from anyone viewing is that if your university has a SEEDS chapter, go ahead and drop it down in the comments, or tell the ESA student section. Maybe link up and just make sure we stay connected and really feed off each other in terms of inspiration and ideas. And so I cannot express enough the importance that I have found in having a SEEDS chapter on campus, and I really do think it makes a huge difference. Some of the fellows and other SEEDS students that I've met have actually never had a SEEDS chapter on campus. I know in the entire state of Carolina, there's only 2 other chapters, and only 1 chapter is actually active. And so that's like really mind-boggling to me, because the ESA provides so many amazing resources to its students. And so, as I mentioned, my mentor, Dr. Carly York, she dedicates herself to squid physiology. And so she was looking for funding, found this, thought of me, and, she was really ready to make an impact on campus. And so we started this SEEDS chapter together. all you really need in order to start your own SEEDS chapter on campus is a mentor, a teacher that is willing to really just have their name on that piece of paper saying that they're leading you and helping you. Now, the activity that your mentor plays in your SEEDS chapter is really up to you guys. I know that on my campus, there's some advisors that play a huge role on clubs on campus, some advisors that are sort of just there overseeing everything, making sure everything goes to order. So it's completely up to you guys how active you want your advisor to be. But I can really tell you that we have gotten in contact with a huge amount of students on campus that otherwise wouldn't have been in a science focused club. Because the way that we present ourselves on campus is an organization that is for diversity, that is there for minorities within the sciences, but also in helping college students know how to live a sustainable lifestyle. So like if you even if you just care about the environment, we are more than happy to have you on our team. And so within that, we get a lot of accounting majors, we get a lot of education majors, like tons of people that aren't even related to the sciences are meeting with us and talking with us on getting all of these cool ideas out. So, for example, some of the events that we hold annually is our Botany Bash. So, this happens right around Halloween. And so, it's our botanists on campus that goes into the history and understanding of pumpkins. Because, as scientists, we know that the genetics of pumpkins are crazy. They're like, wow, there's so many different kinds of pumpkins. And like one allele can make such a big difference in pumpkins. But your general public might not know that. So what we do is we do like this scientific presentation about pumpkins and their genetics. And then we roast marshmallows and we carve pumpkins and have a pumpkin carving contest to see who can make like the spookiest scientific pumpkin or something like that. Another way we connect with students is by helping them understand the carbon footprint that having a heavy meat diet holds. So we try to introduce the students on campus to vegan dishes. So we had like a vegan potluck, a vegetarian potluck, on like showing them these amazing tasty dishes that don't hold such a heavy carbon footprint in terms of like agriculture and all of resources that go into having a steak for dinner. And we're not out there converting people to like not ever eat meat ever again, but rather we're just presenting those environmental facts to everyone nearby so that they know like what's in your food, how is it getting there, what pollutions are around us and in our nation from the result of that. And so I think that's really awesome. It really makes a lot of students think about what they're doing. Um, Another thing that I want to point out is like helping students understand that they can live sustainably while on a college budget. You don't have to like have tons of money to buy this reusable thing. Like there's easy, conscious differences that you can make just in your everyday life to live more sustainably. And I really like that we focus on that. I will admit though that there has been times on campus where people ask me like, "Oh, you guys are the ones that plant stuff, right?" And yeah, like we like planting stuff. Like we're definitely are all for planting stuff, but we're so much more than that. And it's just like making sure that people know about that and being inclusive. Like anyone is welcome, and any major, any religion, anything like that, like you guys are more than welcome to come hang out with us. We'll a lot of seminars as well, rather it be about animals, rather it be the environment, like tons of different things, because the seeds, sustainability, ecology, education, diversity, like that in itself is such a big umbrella that you can like really tailor it to whatever you guys want to talk about.
Yeah, that is great. When you said you were doing like a botany bash with like pumpkin carving and have like genetic information attached to it, I was like, why don't they have that in my institution? I would love that. I mean the entire point, like just to make it so scientific at the same time make it fun. I think that's one of the biggest challenges in education in general. Like how to, I mean, in communication, like how to appeal to the general public. And the general public, especially college students, will only like it if there's food, if it's fun, and they can enjoy it. And it's great that you're making an effort to like bring those two together as well as educating them on their environment. Yeah, I remember this one time when we had Earth Day in my college, and we ended up doing bird feeders out of pine cones and honey to make it more sustainable because we didn't want to do like the I don't know how else you would do bird feeders, but we just wanted to make sure we are doing it in a sustainable way. And I remember hanging those up, and it was super fun. So that was something that we do back when I was in state college. Not community college anymore, state college, but that was super fun. And again, I don't have a seats here at UF, and I'm trying to start one, but yeah, that's another thing I wanted to point out is that you don't need to start a club. Like if you already have a club on your campus that focuses on ecology, and as you said, ecology is very diverse. You don't have to have a label or like we're the ecology club or something like that. Anything that relates to ecology that works for ecology, they can definitely be associated with seeds. All they need to do is fill out a form, and you get all these cool funding opportunities. Like you said, it's more fun for students if you can organize more field trips. Just go places, just have fun, and you get the money for it too. So, and that's just an engaging kind of environment that would be there if you would have a seeds chapter in your institution. So that's what I wanted to add. I don't know. So what should we talk about now? Do you have anything else to add, Selena?
I definitely agree with you, absolutely, and just making sure that students on campus know about the awesome resources that SEEDS has, like those expense paid research opportunities, or even in the leadership meeting, or even just getting a travel world as well. Just making sure that everyone knows that there's resources out there that don't require like any research expertise prior to, like the SPUR fellowship. If this is your first time doing research, that's perfectly fine. And it's hard to come by, I think, these days on finding an internship that will support you all the way. And so I think that's really important that our students know as well. I think that your bird feeding idea was amazing. Like same thing at our Christmas holiday party, we made garlands, but out of like cranberries that we would hang up outside around for the birds to eat. Another one I like to talk about as well is seed bombs. I don't know if you're familiar with those, but that clay that has infused wildflowers. And of course, you can use this as a chance to talk about native plants and native pollinators and how important it is to an area. And basically you just throw out these seed bombs that decompose all by themselves, and basically the seeds is planting itself. And so we make that into like a 3-time event, like making the seed bombs, dispersing the seed bombs, wrapping the seed bombs. Like we make it into like a full like several day event, and like that's something that you can do as well to engage your student.
Yeah, that's super cool. I mean, yeah, that sounds incredible. And like what you were saying, seeds is like a huge resource. And also the best part is it doesn't matter what financial status you are, because everything is like, already paid for by the program. And that's something I remember because I was telling my sister who's applying for undergrad programs now, and she was like, oh my god, I just want to go give, she said, like, I want to go give Fred a hug, because she's like, every program I look at, there's like nothing for diversity, and even if it serves a diverse community, it's always the money or the visa status, and just finding a program that is catering to such a diverse community at the same time is accessible to so many people. It's just incredible, and I second that opinion. I mean, Fred has been doing an incredible job doing all of this outreach and as part of the SEEDS program. So thank you, Fred. I know you're in the live. If you're not, you can watch the video later and get this whole shout out. But yeah, thank you so much for all the hard work.
Absolutely. And just like some of these internship opportunities that you look at are like really hard on students. Like there's some internships where it's like, you work 40 plus hours a week with no pay, and sometimes that's just not doable for these students. And I definitely relate to that on like making sure like the financial hardship that you undergo over the summer on looking for internship opportunities.
Yeah.
But on that note, if anyone has any questions or comments on Facebook Live, please go ahead and write those in there. If anyone ever wants to chat just one-on-one, get any more ideas for your SEEDS chapter, or if you have any questions about anything at all, or even just want to chat, I'm available. I know that Aisha has spread my contact information, so just hit me up if you guys ever want to chat about anything. I'm a resource here for you guys. And on that, actually, I just remembered that we haven't talked about nonprofits.
Yeah.
And so, if it's okay with you, can we jump into that?
Sure, go ahead. I mean, we still have time, so yeah.
So I started at my local nonprofit, which is the Catawba Science Center here in Hickory, 3 years ago, and I just started out as like helping out on the weekends and helping out on any kind of events that they may have. I don't know if you have a nature center near you that sort of does like public events and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so I've always stayed in contact with them, and it's important that you do like keep a happy relationship between you and your local nature center as an account. And I've recently been inspired to start a Latinx outreach program. And so what I've realized is that there is actually no one of my complexion and of my experience with the Hispanic community on that entire team, on that entire leadership board. And so I'm actually using that to my advantage in terms of like starting this new program. There's so many amazing resources that your local nature center has for families are missing out on a large portion of population because of that language difference. So for example, right now with it being remote learning, they have these super cool science demos and science resources. But again, if mom and dad can't understand English, then they're not utilizing these resources. And so that's what I'm dedicating myself to, just going ahead and doing your basic brochure, pamphlet, paperwork translation, but also making sure that these science demonstrations and these science explanations are in a language that mom and dad can understand, and then later on teach their children. And I get a lot of my inspiration just from my local community here. We have a big Hispanic community, and I like to think about like the children. Like, do they know that they can study bugs for a living? You know, do they know they can be a zookeeper and hang out with polar bears all day if they really wanted to? And just like making sure that as a community and as a culture that we keep all of our doors open, and understanding the importance of recycling, the importance of composting, the importance of like maybe choosing something more eco-friendly versus something that's not, you know, like why is that important? And on that note, I just want to express that there is no better place to change the world than where you are right now. You know, there in your home, there in your institution, like you yourself can make a huge difference just by spreading the word and spreading information. You know, you don't have to go to some different foreign country to make a difference. And here at home, I think is the best place to start because you're with your loved ones and you're with your community, and that in itself is enough inspiration to make the world a better place for yourself and for those around you. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what this outreach program has. A lot of my coworkers are physics and chemistry based, which is amazing because I'm not, you know, I'm more outdoorsy. Let's see what's hiding under your shed sort of critter finding person, which at the end is perfect. So if nobody like you is in your field or is in your area, that's perfect because they have you now, you know? And I think that's something important to think about, that even if there's nobody that likes stuff you like, that's perfect because you're providing that expertise and that interest.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's a great initiative. I agree. Like when you said, like, you know, there's sometimes like, how do they know that this is something they can do? Now, I come from India, and in my society, you know, what I'm doing even is considered an unconventional career path. Like people, like it's like lawyer, doctor, engineer kind of thing, and I'm like, when I said I was like, I want to go and do research and become a scientist, and they just thought of it as an impossible dream. So I was like, Definitely. I mean, one of my main things is I always tell everybody I try to reach as many people as I can with all of these resources and all these career paths that they can actually choose. And as part of ESA, that's given me like a larger platform to reach students so that they know that, okay, even if you're not going through a conventional career path, you can definitely take so many different ones. It's tailor made for you. So your career path is yours to choose and yours to make. So that is incredible. And you said your nature center is where you like kind of got this idea for the nonprofit. That's great. I used to volunteer for the conservation center and zoo when I was back in Orlando. So we used to help with I used to help with like making the enclosures and like upkeep and all that stuff, and just like help with cleanup after the hurricanes because oh my god, it takes so much effort, and we all have volunteers that like go to lakes to like in the entire preserve and make sure that everything is set. So that's something really cool, and I love volunteering the zoo because I love the zoo and conservation areas. But yeah, you're right. I mean, if it's not accessible to family or to who the people who are going to be teaching the kids, I mean, there isn't any point in having that resource available. That's awesome that you're doing that. Right.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think now we can kind of put an end to this. So I'm just gonna say, thank you, and then we can go over to like the live, like the chat. So anybody has questions, they can ask now. You know what? Never mind. Let's just keep it going, and I can just cut it when depending upon when we end it. All right. So if anybody has questions for me or Selena on her research, on all the things that she talked about, please feel free to comment. And I see a comment saying that, oh yeah, SEEDS also provides travel grants for annual meetings, and that's something that's super cool. Everything from your airfare to your hotel room to, and most importantly, they provide a one-on-one mentorship program, and that is one of the best things that ever happened to me. I would say that honestly, and also and for as a student, that is a great way to just connect at the annual meeting and to have that guidance. So the SEEDS program is incredible, and I definitely highly recommend you apply for those travel awards. They are available for undergrads, so like first time SEED students, and if you already are a SEED student and you are graduating, you can apply for the Alumni Mentor Awards like me. You can become an alumni mentor and, guide the future SEED students that come in the next cycle. So definitely thank you, Vanessa, and oh, thank you, Fred. You are truly amazing, like Selena said. You're incredible. All right, so is there any other questions for us? So